can't move 5 or 6 million people out of a country and fill it up with 5 or 6 million more and expect both sets of them to be pleased. We had all sorts of objections to everything that was done. Something had to be done. We went ahead and done it and had it done, and now it's working out. Eventually, I think we'll have them all satisfied, but it's going to take a great deal of time yet to get the job done.
Back in 1947, Zionist extremists tried to assassinate President Harry Truman. Those who don't know, President Harry Truman was the 33rd President of the United States and served from 1945 to 1953. During his presidency, there was a Zionist extremist group called Stern Gang that had two main goals. One was to kick out the British and peacekeepers through tea attacks and assassinate anyone who proposed a two-state solution that favored Palestinians. At the time, President Harry Truman supported the 1947 UN Partition Plan, Resolution 181. This angered Stern Gang so much, they actually sent letter bombs to Truman in 1947. This wasn't found out until 1972 when his daughter wrote it in the biography of her father. The New York Times piece that wrote about it in 1972, the so-called Stern Gang of Zionist extremists tried to assassinate President Truman by letter bomb in 1947. Mrs. Margaret Truman Daniel writes that a number of cream-colored envelopes about 8 by 6 inches arrived in the White House addressed to President and various members of the staff. They were found to contain powdered gelgonite, a pencil battery, and a detonator rigged to explode the gelgonite when the envelope was opened. The White House mailroom, alert to the danger of postal bombs, discovered the letters and had them defused by Secret Service bomb experts. Later, the British police in Palestine had determined that the bombs were powerful enough to unalive, or at the very least maim, anyone unlucky enough to open them. Pretty insane stuff. Later on, Stern Gang and other Zionist extremist groups coalesced into what is today the IDF.
This is Ezekiel 36:5. I, the sovereign Lord, have spoken out in the heat of my anger against the surrounding nations, and especially against Edom. With glee and contempt, they captured my land and took possession of its pastures. Kahala Yahweh B'Shem Yashai B'Shem Kodash, which is the true Hebrew names for the Most High Father, which is Yahweh, which is Hebrew for He is, and His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, which is Hebrew for He is salvation, He delivers. Double honors my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect, who are the house of David reborn again in this generation. And Shalom to the 130 Yasharallah, who today are known as the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, who before losing our true heritage, we were known as, and still are, the true Hebrew Israelites of the Holy Bible. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about how the nation of Edom, which is the secret biblical nation that is prophesied in the Bible to be in rulership at the time of the second coming of the Messiah, which we are shortly coming upon, and that also that they would be the nation that would impersonate the true chosen people, and they would also steal the land of the Lord, right? That being the land of Israel. Well, in this particular lesson, we're going to focus on how it was that not only England, right, the British government, but also America, or as it's known in the Bible, Babylon the Great, were involved in appointing the land of Israel, the Holy Land, God's land, into their own possession. Well, we all know the story of the Balfour Declaration, and just to recap, in the Bible timeline, in 1917 AD, you have the Balfour Declaration that was created, right? Because what happened is after World War I, which had just passed, and you had the Allied forces, which was like England and France, America, all those countries for the most part were the winners of this First World War. And that basically meant that they, England that is, controlled the land of Israel, and they had taken it from the Ottoman Empire, which today would be known as Turkey. Well, since they had it, the Rothschilds, this guy here, he ultimately lobbied the ex-Prime Minister of England, Alfred Balfour into basically signing over the land of Israel over to the so-called Jewish people, whose true biblical identity are the Amalekites of the nation of Edom. Because you see, again, so-called Caucasians and the so-called Israelis, or so-called Jewish people, as you would refer to them today, they're both Edomites. They are both of Caucasian race, okay? Now, these are the descendants of Esau. So, like I was saying, in 1917, England, who had temporary ownership over that land, they had appointed that land into the hands of Amalek, the so-called Jewish people. And they kept that land basically until 1948, when the treaty that gave England the control over that land would expire. Okay? Now, what happened is, from 1917 all the way to 1948, Amalek was in that land first as refugees in that land, and little by little they would move in amongst the existing inhabitants of that land, the Palestinians. Now, the Palestinians, they don't belong in that land, right? They are simply Arabs, right? The children of Ishmael, who inhabited that land going back to the time of the Crusades. Now, yes, there's Israelites amongst the Palestinians, just like there's Israelites amongst every one of the 193 nations upon the face of the earth. But by and large, the Palestinians that were in that land, by the time that Amalek started coming into that land, they are the descendants of Ishmael and should not be in that land. So at this point, you have Edom and Ishmael both inhabiting the Holy Land of the Lord. Now, let's go and read about this. Okay, this is the assassination attempt, which the guy in the second video kind of just highlighted. We're just going to read a little bit about it. It says the Jewish, or really I should say the Amalekite assassination attempt of Harry Truman in 1947. It says a little known fact of the American history is that the Zionist Amalekite attempted to assassinate U.S. President Harry Truman in 1947. That this fact has been erased from today's history books is no surprise, as Israel is our greatest ally. If you've ever wondered why Harry Truman signed off so quickly on the founding of the Erstat, which basically means fake, illegitimate, or like a false copy, Erstat state of Israel in 1947, this might certainly shed light on the matter. And this is what Harry S. Truman's daughter wrote. It says, Harry Truman's daughter, Margaret Truman, wrote the following. In the summer of 1947, the so-called Stern Gang of Palestine terrorists tried to assassinate Dad by mail. A number of cream-colored envelopes about 8 by 6 inches arrived in the White House, addressed to the president and various members of the staff. Inside them were a small envelope marked private and confidential. Inside that second envelope was powered gelatinite, a pencil battery, and a detonator rigged to explode. The gelatinite, when the envelope was opened, fortunately, the White House mailroom was alert to the possibility that such letters might arrive. The previous June, at least 8 were sent to British government officials, including Foreign Secretary Anthony Eden. The British police exploded one of these experimentally and said it could kill or at the very least maim anyone unlucky enough to open it. The mailroom turned the letters over to the Secret Service, and they were defused by their bomb experts. The Secret Service still screens all of our mail. See, so that was what was going on. Now, that ultimately happened because Truman, he wanted to go ahead and split up Palestine into a two-state solution, right? Give Amalek his portion of the land and give Ishmael the other portion of the land. But these Amalekites, they didn't want that. They wanted the whole thing for themselves. Now, this comes from the Harry S. Truman Library, and this basically explains overall what took place, right? And how Harry S. Truman, why he so quickly recognized the country or the the state of Israel, which is a country now recognized by the UN. And well, that's because, right here, they're not going to say because he was, threatened or he was worried for his life. No, it's going to say the official narrative. But as we just watched and read, we now understand why a year later, he now understood what was required of him, and which is why he actually recognized the state of Israel. Let's read it. It says, in 1917, the Balfour Declaration transferred rule of the Middle Eastern region known as Palestine to the British Empire as a temporary nation home for Jewish people. Between 1917 and 1948, Palestine was inhabited by Amalekite immigrants who supported the idea of Zionism, the right of the Amalekite people to return to the Holy Land, and Arabic-speaking Muslims and Christians who had occupied the land for many centuries, right? Centuries because they were there since the Crusades. Tensions began to form between the Arab Palestinians and the Amalekite immigrants as both groups tried to take claim over the same portions of religiously significant land. In 1948, the Balfour Declaration was scheduled to expire and Great Britain would no longer rule Palestine. The question over what to do with the tumultuous country was turned over to the United Nations, who would eventually decide to create the new country of Israel, specifically as a promised homeland for Jewish people, right? The Amalekites. The new country was to be located across the various holy locations in which many events of the Old Testament occurred, and according to the Bible was promised to the Amalek or the Jewish people by God. And it wasn't Jewish, it was the Israelites, right? The Israelite people, which the tribe of Judah, who they refer to as Jews, made up one of those tribes, okay? And that is not these people, okay? These here are the Edomites. These are not the Jewish people. These are not these are not the chosen people. These are the rejected sons of Isaac, okay? Continuing, it said, U.S. President Harry Truman was the first world leader to officially recognize Israel as a legitimate Jewish state on May 14th, 1948, only 11 minutes after its creation. His decision came after much discussion and advice from the White House staff, who had differing viewpoints. Some advisors felt that creating a Jewish state was the only proper response to the Holocaust and would benefit American interests. Others took the opposite view, concerned about that the creation of a Jewish state would create more conflict in an already tumultuous region. Right? See, so ultimately, this is the narrative that Esau pushes out, right? But the true narrative is what we had just read. Basically, attempted to assassinate Truman because he wasn't playing ball. He didn't want to extend the Jewish state. In fact, I think they were even looking at other locations to have the land of Israel or the Jewish people move to, like down in Africa or other locations, right? But they wanted that land. This is Jeremiah 50 and 45. Therefore, hear ye the counsel of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, that he hath taken against Babylon, and his purposes that he has purposed against the land of the Chaldeans. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. So you see, Babylon, the land of the Chaldeans, in this case, is referring to America, the land of the witches, okay? Because all these leaders, all these people here in high society, they're all witches, okay? They all practice witchcraft, right? Luciferianism, Satanism, right? It's all a form of high magic, okay? And it tells you that this is the purpose that the Lord has against these Babylonians, these Americans. It says that he's going to basically cause the least of the flock, who are the Israelis, the Amalekites, that they're going to eventually draw these Edomites out. Okay, and not only just the American Edomites, but mostly the American Edomites, but also these other nations, the English Edomites, the French Edomites, the Canadian Edomites, the Australian Edomites. He's going to draw these Amalekites are going to draw all their brethren down into the valley of Israel, right there in the valley of Jehoshaphat, to commence with World War III. You're already starting to see how they're drafting people into the Ukrainian war, and that's only going to continue, which eventually is going to end up with a large world war that's going to be going full on scale when the Lord returns. And when the Lord returns, he's going to wipe them all out. Okay, that is what the Lord is going to draw them out into. Okay, and now that we're getting close to that time, the Lord is now revealing these devils for what they've done, who they are, how they did it, and all that stuff. This is Jeremiah 49:10. But I have made Esau bare, I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren, and his neighbors, and he is not. You see, these Edomites, though they may be, walking on high and thinking they're all high and mighty and that they got the win in their bag, they ain't gonna succeed with this new world order. They're not gonna bring forward their agenda. They're gonna be tasting ashes and their mouth is gonna be full with gravel, says the Bible. Okay, they are already walking dead men. Okay, they've already lost and they don't even know it yet. So hopefully this video was edifying, Akim. I just wanted to kind of go over this history so that way we have a better understanding of how Esau, these Edomites, appointed the Holy Land into their hands. First they did it through the bureaucracy of England, right, with the Balfour Declaration, but then it was done again at the UN, which is a US created institution which is now recognized by the world, right, under the auspices that it's going to be a force for good and it's going to give everybody an equal chance at the table, at the governance table, which is a bunch of bullshit. But like I said again, in 1948, it was reinitiated the Jewish state of Israel at the UN, and then it was solidified by Harry S. Truman, who had recognized Israel as a legitimate state. Okay, only 11 minutes after it was created. So either way, hopefully this was edifying, Akim. Hopefully this is useful. So until next time, I want to give all honor and glory and praises to Yahweh, B'Hashem Yahushai, B'Hashem Ruach HaKodesh. Shalom.